like that. A picture of Chuck talking with our camp kids. He would take time out to do that kind of thing. And so it was really great to have Red Bull there, and there'll be more about them later. One year, Roger and Otto couldn't make it, so he got his buddy Captain Laser to come out and do it, which was also in the Schweitzer 300. And you can see Captain Laser like to blow things up. But the air show was really also about doing things that helicopters can do. That's what we wanted to showcase. And so here's an example of PG&E doing their long line demo where they set up a line like that's what they would go on these power lines, these high tension lines, and work on them hanging from the bottom of a helicopter. And this particular one's an MD-520N. And then one of our favorite acts, gags, if you will, was the infamous car drop. And what would happen is the announcers would start early saying things like, there's a car blocking an entrance, please move it. And they'd give a license plate, some fake license plate and car. And they'd make this announcement throughout the show. And then finally, a helicopter would come in, and in this case, it was Silver State helicopters, and they would drop the car. And that was a big crowd favorite. Well, safety was always a concern for us. So the first year we asked them, you know, like, well, how big of an area do you need around it to be a safe zone? And he said, if you put a cone down there, which if you look real close at those pictures, you zoom in, you'll see there's a cone. He says, I'll hit it. And he hit it every time. These are pictures of the car actual dropping, and he hit it every time. So that was a fun gag. And then one of the more special things we did one year was our Vietnam reenactment. We had the H-21 that was set up by the Classic Rotors group, and we had reenactors come out, and we did a full-on Vietnam reenactment. And one of our volunteers at the time was a vet and named Bob Michaels, and he wrote the script for this. And it was such a powerful script and a powerful show that we actually had vets coming up afterward in tears and saying that was real. That was really, it was almost too real for him, but thank you for honoring us. And some of the other helicopters that participated in that was the Emu Huey, Air America Huey, and an OH-6 Loach. So that was quite a special, we only did that once, but it was really special. But when you have something like that, you have a fire burning on the field, how do you put it out? Well, if you have a Sikorsky S-24 Sky Crane on hand, then you grab it. And that's what we did. So the next act we put after this, you can actually see in the background there, the H-21 and the two Hueys flying. And then the Sky Crane came in and put out the fire. That was pretty fun to watch. If you look at the picture over there of the people, that's Gene Tensley, the short one in the middle. Gene Tensley was one of the first 99s. The 99s is an all-women's flying pilot group, and they were named that because Howard Hughes said there would never be more than 99 women pilots. So they showed him wrong. But she was also a test pilot, and she even did testing in the early version of the V-22 Osprey. Well, we needed a sponsor for getting this helicopter here to the show. And she said she would sponsor it if she could fly it. And so we told the owners that we had a sponsor to get them here, but she wants to fly it. And then we told them who she was, and they said, absolutely. They don't have any problem with that. And then just a side note, they're standing next to her in the red hat. That's Jim Rickliffs. And he was of Rick's Helicopters, one of the early pioneers in helicopters and founders of the Helicopter Association International. So a little side, he was very involved with the early days of the museum. And here's just a cool picture of two cool pictures of it coming at you, and then of the H-21 taking off for their act while they were getting ready with the Sky Crane to go. And then the air show, we did a lot of other cool things, not just helicopters, but we had like the Sundowners kite team. They flew virtually every year, I think. And just a stack of long kites that they would fly. We had the Go Fast jetpack fly by, and that was very fun if people who had never seen a jetpack actually fly. Dan Buchanan and his hang glider flew at a couple of the shows, and then we had on the bottom there we had hovercraft, and then below that we had the RCs. And these RCs were part of the show, and later became what we now do, because we don't do vertical challenge anymore. We do blast, which Jeff was referring to. And that's our pretty much all RC show with a big airplane when we can do it in normal situations. But that's what that grew into. We also had some interesting aircraft do flyovers. And the top one, an F-117, the interesting story, fun story about that one is, I used to go to conferences for air shows, and I was playing golf with the scheduler of the Air Force assets for air shows. And that was just fun. We were just having a good time. Well, later I got a call from him, and he said, how would you like an F-117 at your show? And I said, well, does it hover? And it was that quiet afterward, no comment. And I said, no, I'm just kidding. Yes, we'll take it. And so we got an F-117, which was super rare, because they just weren't doing very many shows. And to have the one do our little helicopter show was quite a treat. And then below that, the Harriers. That was one of Dennis Deneen's final accomplishments, is he was gonna make sure we got Harriers at our show. And he did. And as a matter of fact, one of the Harrier pilots went to Carmont High School, where I went. So that helped get him here. But we did have Harriers one year at the air show at the end. And then the C5 flyover, that was out of Travis. Dennis was also an honorary wing commander at Travis, and which later he made me it got me into being an honorary wing commander, which was pretty cool. But we had a giant C5 fly at 1,000 feet right over the runway with the gear down, and that was quite a spectacle. We also had other cool aircraft fly here. The Hiller Museum DC-3 did some flyovers at years, and the Coast Guard. As I said, it was always easy to get Coast Guard assets with having an admiral on your staff. And then we even had the Air Venture Zeppelin do a flyover. They wanted to land, but because of FAA rules, they weren't allowed to. But they wanted to land and let a crowd out, but that would have been cool. But we did have a Zeppelin actually fly over our show. Emergency helicopters, we had plenty of those. We had, let's see, where's my, the Life Flight helicopter here, which was a EC-145. Then we had Reach and the Augusta 109. And then down on the bottom there, the CalStar MD-901, they had the best line ever. And it was, you have to be sick to fly with us. Always wanted to get one of their shirts. That was a great line. And the CHP always did demos at the show for us. They were at every show, and they would put on their demonstrations of long lines and rescue. The sheriffs, Contra Costa Sheriffs, Bell 206 and 407. I've always liked that shot. The Sonoma County Sheriffs, Henry 1, they're in the middle. And they would do a long line also. They would do a demo for us, and one of them was with a SWAT team. And there would be like 7 guys hanging from the bottom, SWAT guys, and they'd floor them all over the place at the show. Then we have the San Jose PD down the bottom right there in their EC-120, and the Santa Clara Eurocopter EC-120 up on top there. Parks and Rec, East Bay Parks and Rec would come over. The regional recs would do water drops and perform in their Eurocopter AS-350. The top right there is Oakland PD, their MD-369D, and then a Robinson Factory helicopter there, like for police, R-44. And then the Cal Fire, CDF, would always come when they could, and they weren't doing fires, and do water drops and demonstrations for us, like dropping off their crew and then going around doing the water drops and coming back and picking up their crew, and in their Huey. And with the sound of a Huey was always wonderful to hear, and that was a great demo. We had lots of news helicopters, and when they had lots of news helicopters. KGO and their Bell 206, CBS and their A-Star 350 up on the top there, along with ABC 7s, AS 350. And then below that, sitting together, is NBC 11s and Cron 4s, Bell 206s. And so we had lots of those, kind of phased out later when they were, but they still have them flying. But not as many anymore. Other participants, we had at the show, and I can't get into all of them. We just had so many. I'm trying to get as many types of helicopters we had, and I'm not hitting them all throughout all the years, but these are like the different types. But we had the Sikorsky S-58T from Aris, and we, after Silver State did the drops, we would ask if Aris would do the drops with their Sikorsky, because they would do lifts. And they said, we spend all our time trying to convince people we don't drop things, so we don't want to drop a car. So they never did do a drop for us. And then the Enstrom up there with the Hiller Museum, that's Cameron Rolfs, who is really the museum helicopter pilot. If you've ever been to any of our Santa events or the Easter Bunny Rise by Helicopter events, that's Cameron that brings them in. And then right below that, there is a Brantley. We call it the Popsicle. You can see why. Then we got a Bell. I mean, we had so many Bells show up, but here's an example of a Bell 47. Augusta 109 on the left, that was Steve Hiller's helicopter. And an Aerospatiale AS-350 Gazelle down on the bottom right. We have an OH-5, or you could call it a Hughes 369 civilian version there on the left. And helicopters can have such great paint jobs. And this one certainly did. And then top right there, that's a Mini 500 turbine. That's a jet engine that the guy put in it. It's experimental, and it was a one of a kind. And then right below that is an MD 530. And then we have like the luxury helicopter there on the left, an MD 901. And then another great paint job on this Bell 407 in the top right corner. And then Robinson with a cool paint job there, R44. And that was actually Steve Hiller's earlier helicopter until he upgraded to the Augusta. And then we'd get just interesting aircraft that would come in. Like we had a number of these gyrocopters. This one was the Air and Space America 18A, the red one there. And then the Schweitzer 300, and then below that, like a Hummingbird gyrocopter. And we had many, many gyrocopters. As a matter of fact, the great late air show gyrocopter pilot, Ken Brock, flew in the very first vertical challenge here. And then other participants, the historic ones. This was a, let's see, we had the Sikorsky S-53. And this only came to the very first year. And Sergei Sikorsky, Igor Sikorsky's son, and then who also went on to run Sikorsky helicopters, came to our first show and did a talk. And he was very good friends with Mr. Hiller. And he didn't know about this helicopter because he didn't think they existed anymore. And he ended up buying it. So that was a neat story that came out of that. And then below that, that's a Bell 47J Ranger. To the top right, the Piasecki Hup 1, which we'll talk more about later. And then the Bell 47D, serial number 39 from 1947, which is now in the museum. It was donated to the museum. Hillers also, there aren't a lot of Hillers around anymore, but the ones that were wanted to come to a helicopter air show at the Hiller Museum, and so they did. So if you're looking from the right, like the Hiller 12s, you see a variety of Hiller 12s there. And then on the bottom right corner there, that was a demo that an ag guy would come in and do at the show because most Hillers were ag helicopters. So he actually came in and did an agricultural demo for us. Over on the left side there, that's an FH1100. And then above that, that's the 360, the convertible version of the Hiller 12. That's the early model of the Hillers, the 360. And then fun fact, the one on the bottom there, that is an L4, and it was used in the movie Goldfinger. So the military arrives. That's really what everybody wanted to see, right? And they were the popular. I mean, that was very popular, the military. And so here's just a picture of some CH-53s arriving, and then a gaggle of helicopters arriving there. My probably all-time favorite picture on the bottom right, or at least one of the top pictures. This was Dennis Dineen's final achievement also. He swore he was going to get us an Osprey. And you got to remember, this is back in 2010 or 2012. And Ospreys were pretty new. And so they were just getting out there and they weren't really going to air shows. So to get one gun, again, to come to our small little air show was quite a coup. And, but we did, and there it is at our show.
Hey, Willie, this is Jeff. I had a question. Does the Osprey melt runways?
Was Tim asking that question? Because he knows the answer. No, it did not. And that was a big concern of the airport. They wanted us to put steel plates everywhere, which we did, and that was a real hassle, but we did. We had no problems, but they weren't worried about it. The Harriers, they actually didn't let the Harriers land here. They came to the show, but they had to go in and out of San Jose because they were afraid it would melt the runways. But there was no problems with the Ospreys. So the Coast Guard, again, going back to the Admiral, and it's my understanding that the Admiral was the Admiral in charge and he signed off on having the Coast Guard helicopters be part of the Coast Guard, these Dolphins. He was the guy who signed off on that. And so they were HH-65 Dolphins, and they would do SAR demos and all kinds of various things where they would lower people and fly sideways and spin around, and some cool demos. And we'd always get two. One was a static, so it was always on, it wouldn't be called away, so it could be on display for the show. And then the other one was one that there was the on-call, is what they would call it, helicopter, and it would come in and do the SAR demo for us. Well, one year, it was hovering outside the show area here, waiting to be called in by the air boss, when he called the air boss and said, an airplane just took off out of Palo Alto and crashed in the bay. So we got a call, we got to get on it. So they were there. That was the luckiest pilot ever, because they were there within 2 minutes, got down there, got him out of it, rescued him, just like you would see here on the right, picture on the top there. They did a real rescue. And then they called us back and said, can we bring him to the air show because we know you have an ambulance because the air show's on. So we said, sure. So they brought him back. The ambulance was already here, put him in the ambulance, and off he went. So he couldn't do his SAR demo for us, but he did a real demo. And as he flew away, everybody was waving, and the announcer had been explaining what had happened. So that was probably the coolest demo we ever had, even though we never really saw it. Then we've got the other military, just various things here. An H-60 Pave Hawk from the 129th Rescue Wing. And we had all the Hawks here. We had Black Hawks and Seahawks too. The CH-46, then we had the AH-64 Apache. It only came once, and it was our second year. And I don't believe Lee Corman, our Apache pilot, was here that year. So he was always trying to get Apaches, and it just never worked out for him. CH-47 Chinook on the bottom right there came out of the Stockton Army National Guard, flown by Ben Bowman, who was a Sarah graduate, Sarah High School, which is also a local high school around here. And then the AH-1s, we had all, this is a W Super Cobra, but we had all the Cobras come here, the different versions of them. And then the left one is a neat little story, because that's a Sea King's SH-3. It was from HC-85 Squadron down at North Island in San Diego. This was actually their final flight, and they retired the helicopter. So when they were leaving this show, they requested a low pass from the tower. And what they had done is they had left a crew member out on the taxiway. So when they were granted the pass, they swung over and dropped the long line down, picked up their passenger, and brought him up, and then left. And that was an unsanctioned demo by the military. And when asked about it, the pilot said, what are they going to do, take my helicopter away from me? So that was kind of cool. And then just various things, you know, like the military would open up their helicopters to the public. And so here's an example of a family in the helicopter with one of the crew working up on top there of the helicopter. But that was a real treat for people to actually get to sit in these assets that they're paying for and get to climb all over them. So that was always a popular thing at the show. And here's a four-bladed Huey as well. And then right above there, I put this picture in there because this was another Dennis Deneen thing. We started doing the swearing in of the poolies, the Marine poolies, which became a tradition at Vertical Challenge. And what that means is the poolies were people who had signed up for the Marines but weren't ready to go to boot camp yet. And so they bring them out here and swear them all in to the Marines right in front of the audience. And that was a really moving experience when they do that. It was pretty cool. So FOD. FOD is something that we have to talk about because that's a big part of doing a helicopter show. And we had 2 big giant street sweep cleaners that we had to hire to come in. We would even run other helicopters like Cameron's Enstrom down the runway or down taxiways to blow the stuff back onto the dirt areas. FOD was a huge problem at a helicopter show, especially such a small show like ours.
What
so
is
you
FOD?
can just see some cool pictures here. Yes?
What does FOD stand for?
Yes, it stands for Foreign Objects Debris is what FOD is. And as you can see, they're kicking up a lot of foreign objects here. Now, Super Tug. You've heard me mention Super Tug a few times, and here he is. It was really a souped up tug, and you can see the blown motor in there. And when Super Tug started, you couldn't even hear yourself. And so that's Bill Newman with Super Tug, and he. One of the coolest things was the helicopter pilots, especially the military, when they get out of it and see this thing pull up to tug them, they'd all grab their phones because they just wanted to get a picture of this cool thing tugging their helicopter. And Super Tug would have been very hard to do the show without because these were very heavy aircraft. And so it was great to have Super Tug. Rides were also very popular. They would start rides as soon as the show opened and sometimes move them to the other side of the field and go till it was dark. That's how many people wanted to do rides. And we had a number of different ride companies involved with us. We had Diamond Aviation in the early days, Specialized Helicopters, Chris, as I was mentioning earlier, out of Watsonville. Silver State did rides. A Bell 47 even did rides. But Bay Aerial, John Dugan, was the main ride helicopter throughout the years. He's still based here at San Carlos Airport and still does tours. If you are interested, contact Bay Aerial, and he'll take you over the Golden Gate Bridge. Something that spawned out of Vertical Challenge was Wild Brew Yonder, and that became our Friday night evening show. So we would put on a mini Vertical Challenge that night, and that was a lot of fun. It was a lot smaller, but even the Coast Guard would come back out and do their SAR demo, and we'd fly other things as dark as we could get it for the show. As you can see here on the other pictures, sometimes the spreads were pretty cool, like when Red Bull was in town. They had couches and TVs and really fancy setup for our VIP area, if you will, and brought in their own bars. And you can see that the military guys certainly enjoyed the Red Bull help. There were other cool, interesting vehicles that would come to the show. Things like the world's fastest motorcycle, which was an Indian motorcycle, came to one of the events. There is Chris. Again, in the Pope Mobile, no, that one's the clown car that used to be donated from Redwood City General Tire to us. And I'm sitting there on Feifel, my scooter, which was a staple at air shows I would go to, especially Vertical Challenge. Had to get around. That was a Honda Spree, 1986 Honda Spree. And I still have it today. And then there's the Pope Mobile, that golf cart there. It was an 8-person golf cart, but we call it the Pope Mobile because people could wave out of it when we take them down the show line after their act. But it was also great for transporting all the military's equipment when they land. And it also would run across the field and get the transient people who would fly in for the show but were airplanes. We'd make them park on the other side of the field, and then we'd go pick them up in the Pope Mobile. And then just various cool vehicles like this FBI vehicle and so forth would come to the events. And so one of the things that I asked some of the photographers to do, some of the regulars, and I'm leaving out a bunch. I know, I apologize if you're on the casting right now, but I grabbed a few people that I know still and asked them to pick their favorite pictures that they took at the show. So I'm starting here with Evan and his dad, Tim. Evan was definitely the youngest. He was in the age range of 11 and older and younger in the years that he came out and did the air shows. So you can see him there, his dad taking a picture of him, taking a picture of a helicopter landing. And then there's Tim and Evan in the Pope Mobile running the military around. Tim was also our official Pope Mobile driver. And then these are just some of Evan's favorite pictures that he took. So you can see he was quite a good photographer. Roger Cain was one that was asked to participate. And he threw in some of his comments, so I'll throw those in now. June 2006, classic rotors. They flew the Hiller Hornet, HJ-1 or YH-32, if you will. And it had ramjets on the tip of the ends. And if you look real close there, you could see the fire blowing out of the ramjet. It was amazing, and it was super loud. There was only one thing louder than that flew at this air show, and I'll talk about that later. But this was loud. And so that was one of his favorite pictures. And then June 2010 show, it took the museum a few years to make it happen, but again, the Osprey coming in from Miramar was one of his favorite things. And then Bell Row, which was always a popular picture that a lot of photographers like to get, was the picture of all the helicopters lined up, and the Bells and Hillers made a really cool picture like that. And you can even see the Feifel sitting down there, my scooter. And then June 2009, the majority of visitors for their first time were able to see a helicopter fly upside down. And that, again, was Chuck Aaron in the Red Bull helicopter. And then Jim Kirkland, he checked in with some of his pictures. One of them was taken from Steve Hiller's helicopter of the Chinook. There on the top. It was flying in, and they met him outside the show and came in with it and took some aerial shots of it. So that was pretty cool. And then just other pictures like of Dan Buchanan. And always a popular picture for a lot of the photographers was kids. And here's a neat one with Red Bull in the background and a kid sitting on Dad's shoulder. And then wanted to throw in there another fun fact, and that is Jim was the designer of the Hiller logo back in the beginning. So there's a logo for you. Hayman Tam. Hayman Tam is an unofficial official museum photographer. He's always here for us. He photographs a lot of our events like the Easter Bunny and Santa's arrival, our gala event. You name it, Hayman is usually here to take a picture for us. So his favorites, the CDF water drop, doing the CDF demos were always a fun part of the Vertical Challenge show. Cobras. Let's see, we got Cobras, stirring up dust, and the arrivals and so forth. And then the showcopters, of course, were some of his favorite shots. And then Sagar. You could talk all night on Sagar, and maybe we can get him to do it because he's flown in some very cool military aircraft and taken pictures. So maybe with enough public pressure, we can get him to go ahead and be one of our Hiller Hangar talks. But here are some of his shots that he enjoyed. And the neat one there on the right, the bottom right there, he got a flight in there with the Red Bull helicopter. And as he mentioned, this caused an accident on 101 because people looking over seeing a helicopter fly upside down. And then also we got him to be one of the bandits that stole Otto's bubble gum. And so there he is, but he would take his camera everywhere, of course. And so there he is taking pictures from the helicopter. And if you look up there, you can see that one of his pictures, and then a shot of the show, that was him hanging from the bottom of the helicopter. And Scott Highton, I say for last for one reason, and that's the second slide, but there are some of his favorite shots. And then this one, which is one of the greatest shots and one of the greatest things we ever did at Vertical Challenge. And that was the stack, the Piasecki tribute. And this will never happen again. Classic Rotor set it up. They got Scott to be the official photographer. And this will never happen again because 3 of those helicopters really don't fly anymore. The Hup one unfortunately crashed, so it's no longer with us. And they barely ever fly the H-21, and the CH-46 there is retired. But that's what we have. The Hup 1, 1949, the Piasecki H-21, 1952, the Boeing Vertol CH-46 from 1959, and the Boeing Vertol CH-47 from 1966. So an amazing photograph there. And I wanted to end the show photographs with that. So the main question that always comes up from everybody is, why did it end? Why isn't there a Vertical Challenge anymore? Well, there's a number of factors that were involved. But the main thing we tell people is we were the success of our own, we were the victims of our own success. We wanted to start small and be this quiet little helicopter show that grew into this thing that was on everybody's radar, including the FAA. And when the rules started coming out from the FAA, it was getting impossible to put on the quality of the type of air show that we wanted to do with those rules. So that was one of the problems. Also, Otto sold his helicopter and went overseas. The showcopters had to disband. Military sequestration came in 2013, and so military couldn't even go to shows for that year. Government helicopters had budget cuts. And then one of the nail in the coffin was we had to close the airport for up to 6 hours to do the show. And that was just too much of a strain on the show. I mean, on the airport with having businesses and flight schools and all that type of thing. So it ended happy. We had a great time. We never had an accident. And so it was a wonderful show. And so now I'll just open it up for questions.
Thank you, Willie. Fantastic to see those pictures. There are some questions that have rolled in on the chat. And one of the questions was, and it's regarding the BE-109, the Red Bull helicopter. Is that upside down flying sustained inverted flight or just in a single aerobatic maneuver? Tell us a little.
No, that's a good question. No, it's not sustained, but it is going upside down, but keeping positive G's. And so they wouldn't be able to maintain positive G's being upside down. So you see it doing barrel rolls, things like that, going upside down. And again, I'm not the helicopter expert at all, but I believe it was a rigid rotor type blade system that allowed it to do that.
Julian Gomez asks, because he saw the picture of the Osprey sitting on our ramp with the flaps down, or whatever those are on an Osprey, and the question is simply, does it always park with those flaps down?
That's a good question. I don't know that. I've only seen it park here. I've actually seen it at other shows, and I don't think it's always with the flaps down, but I'm not sure.
Maybe it's just like parking a Cessna. You usually put the flaps down just to see if they're working.
Yeah, we do that, so I hit my head on it. Yeah.
What was your most favorite memory from the air show? Sagar asks.
Oh, well, yeah. That's like me asking him, what's your favorite picture? Because there's so many. But I have to say probably the stack. That was so incredible. It happened in 2002, and that was the loudest thing that ever happened at the show. Having all those moving parts and helicopter blades turning at the same time, it was deafening, really. But that was probably the coolest thing. But there were so many wonderful memories.
Is there not a video uploaded somewhere on YouTube of the stack flying around?
Yeah, I believe there is a video of it. We have a video, but I couldn't get it on here and make the time.
Zoom is not great for videos, but there are lots of videos of Vertical Challenge on YouTube at our own channel, and other people have uploaded them on their own sites, and you can search for them, and it's always fun to see those. Let's see. What about other helicopter air shows? Is this thing an event that's done much anymore anywhere? I know on the East Coast there is a helicopter museum that was doing an air show too. Right,
yeah, they used to do it. Oh, why am I blanking out on their name? But they're in Pennsylvania, and they had a helicopter show. It wasn't as big as this, but it was cool. They didn't do actual aerobatics at theirs. They did some SAR demos and things like that, but they didn't have the performing type helicopters that we had, like Otto and the showcopters and Red Bull. And then they stopped their show too. So as far as I know, and then there's the American Heroes. They used to do a show, and I don't know if they even do that anymore as well. I think they stopped. So I don't believe there's even any all helicopter air shows anymore. But and it's hard to even see helicopters at air shows because most of them aren't around anymore, like the performing ones. But you can see some of the military stuff do it.
Okay.
Oh, I see Roger. There's Otto. Hey, you rock, dude.
The question is from Jackson Badia about whether there were a lot of RC models at the show, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the biggest little air show virtual that's coming up next week.
Yes, we always had a segment of RCs, and I had a nice picture but didn't make the cut into this of a whole row of them that would come out to the show. And that's what gave us the idea to do the biggest little air show, which we're doing next weekend, as we've said. Now, it's the biggest little virtual air show because of our restrictions, because the museum is still not open to the public right now. For those of you in other parts of the country, we are not open yet. But we are going to do a virtual show, and it's all RC helicopters and airplanes. I'm sorry. It's airplanes, RC helicopters, and various different RCs that will be flying at that. And then on a normal year, we would have one large-scale aerobatic airplane fly, but this year we're not doing that.
Well, looks like we're reaching the top of the hour, so we want to wrap it up a little bit. I do want to thank Willie Turner for taking us down memory lane with Vertical Challenge. We could probably do a whole other hour on it. Maybe we're going to do a part 2 on this at some point.
Maybe a part 2. No, we're going to get, I see Sagar there, see Nancy from Romper Room here. So we're going to get him to do one of his talks, because he's got some fabulous talks and fabulous pictures.
So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our Vertical Challenge Hiller Hangar talk, and be sure to join us next week, next Friday, for the African Safari talk by Mike Venturino, and we look forward to seeing you. So stay safe, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, Willie. You rock, dude.
You rock. You rock.
Good night, everybody.
Good to see you, buddy.
It's good to see you, and you're up late where you are.
Yeah, I was at a funeral tonight. I'd been on a little earlier, but
You've been in bed early, huh?
that's right. That was good, though. That was really good.
You. Well, we miss Otto for sure.
Yeah, I talked to the guy the other night. He's thinking about bringing it to the United States and doing a U.S. tour.
That would be cool. Well, if he makes the West Coast, I'll be able to catch him.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. I told him about you guys, and I didn't know what you was going to do. I mean, what's the possibility of doing a helicopter show at like another airport?
Those questions have come up, and it's possible. One of the main points was to get it here, right, at the museum, because it's to showcase the museum. But we also looked at Moffett, but Moffett is federal and a lot of problems to try to make something happen there, because I've done an air show there before. And then Half Moon Bay was always a possibility, but you know, you got 2 weeks of sunshine there and the rest is fog. And so you really can't count much on that. So we have thought about it. We have looked around. It wouldn't certainly be off the table. It's not out of there. But then it goes back to the other thing, like Otto's not around anymore. Showcopters aren't around anymore. We can't get Red Bull. So we can't get a lot of the air show cool stuff that we had to. But you never know. We might do something.
You know, the people in the air show industry don't understand that just how much it costs to operate a helicopter to do that. You know, insurance alone for a comparable airplane to Otto was only, it was like 30% cheaper for them to do it. I mean, it cost me $30,000 a year just to insure the helicopter.
Oh, I know.
Like $150,000.
I know. Yeah. So for you to come all the way out to our show, that was a big deal.
It was a fun part of my life to come out there. I don't know. We did it probably about 10 times or something, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You made a lot of the shows. And what place did you get in that Hoka Hay race?
I finished 10th place in Hoka Hay.
10th place. Riding a Harley all the way across the country. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was 10th place. It was a great adventure. It really was. And you know, you could write a short story on just how we pulled that off the first year, because I had to hire a driver, and then Pauline had to go out there. And I mean, by the time I got finished with the race and the very next air show, the helicopter was in Battle Creek, Michigan.
Oh, wow. I know
From
it.
your show.
I know it. Yep. Yeah, I told that story. You may not have been on yet, but I told that story.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Well, all right. Anybody else checking in, or?
Hey, Roger, good to see you.
Yeah, it was good to see all you guys. I mean, this was a great idea. I tried to get in here just when you started, but I just couldn't quite make it. I had a real good friend of mine. He's like a brother to me, and his son was a commercial pilot. He was also an engineer. He made his living as an engineer working on the space station science projects. And he decided he wanted to get a helicopter rating, and he was just finishing up his training. And he was solo Saturday, and something happened to the engine. He didn't get a good auto rotation out of it, landed in some trees and killed him.
That's awful.
And you know,
awful.
my kids and him went to school together. It was real sad.
That's sad.
I had quite a few moments this evening already.
I'm glad you could join for this, and I'm sorry you missed the opening slide. Is Otto playing volleyball with the Water Girls. So
Yeah, that was fun.
that was the opening
And they were
slide.
good, and they were good-looking girls too.
Oh, well, you know, only the best at vertical challenge.
Well, I'm gonna give those still hanging on a chance to hop off so we can let everybody go to bed. But thanks everybody.
Right. Well, we'll catch up with you, Roger, another time. But good seeing you.
Yeah, you too, Willie. Take care.
Good
Thanks.
to see y'all. Thanks, Roger. Both Rogers.
Okay. And I am out of here too. Bye.
Goodbye.